And we're back with another Essential 7 LinkedIn Live. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so we'll give it a few minutes as we wait for people to continue to join. In the meantime, it's always nice to hear you in the comments or see you in the comments. Drop a comment, let us know who's in the house. Today's LinkedIn Live, we're taking you through the wonderful world of transforming your webinar into multi-channel impact. Let us know in the comments if you have any challenges or problems or issues you want us to cover, anything you want us to touch on, anything that you think you would love to have an idea. How can you get more out of your webinars? How can you do more promotion? Anything along the lines of promoting your webinars and really getting the maximum amount of content out of it. That's what we're going to be covering today. But we'll give it another minute or so. Hey there, Helen. Good to have you.
Hey, Helen.
Do let us know who's on the stream. Give us a hi. It's always nice to see the comments flying up. Hey, Razumi. Hope you're well. We'll give it another 20, 30 seconds and then we'll get stuck in. Have we got anyone who's not in the UK? Any international audience? Anyone watching from abroad? Let us know in the comments. We do get a mixed bunch normally on these streams. All right, well, let's get cracking anyway. Let's jump in. So welcome, everyone. We've got another Essential 7 from myself and Rory today. We're going to be diving into how to transform webinars from one-off events into multi-channel content ecosystems. So I think we all know webinars can be a powerful tool for B2B engagement, right? But all too often what we see is that they're really not used to their maximum potential. So we'll get stuck into all of that. But before we do, for those of you who don't know me, I am Ash. I'm agency director overseeing all delivery at SeventhElement. SeventhElement, we're a digital marketing agency. We do specialize in kind of content and channel strategies. We've been around the block. Kind of our experience predates Google and Bing, for example, on the SEO front. And I'm joined today by Rory, who will be helping me talk you through some of our tips and give some of his expertise, as he's part of our social media team that is often running campaigns centered around webinars for some of our clients. So hopefully between us, you should be in good hands. Bit of housekeeping. If we do have time, we will try and answer any Q&As that come in the comments. So as we're going through, feel free to drop a comment if you have a question on a particular slide, or a question, or a thought, and if we have time at the end, we'll try and address it. Otherwise, if we don't respond to all the questions, we'll get back to you via email or in the comments themselves. And we do have a full PDF downloadable guide. So we're going to be touching on things today, but we will be having, we do have a PDF downloadable guide. It's actually available on our Fuel Room on our website, or just shout us at hello@seventhelement.agency and we'll fire that back to you. Okay, so let's jump in. So really today's goal is all about trying to show you how we can drive sustained engagement beyond the live event. Use strategic content distribution to kind of maximize your impact and ensure measurable results, measurable business results. by leveraging smarter webinar strategies. Let's be honest, it's all about ROI, right, at the end of the day. So if you're investing time and resource into putting on these great webinars, hopefully this session will help you extract the most value possible. And really, the way we see it is a return on the content. So that's the return on investment here. So Rory, you work across a lot of accounts for us, and you're trying to make the most of webinars. It's quite, I mean, it's something you do quite often. So, so other than the obvious, like time and resource to kind of put all this content together and kind of promote all these webinars, what other challenges do you come across on this?
Yeah, I mean, if like me, you kind of spend any time on LinkedIn at all, I think you'll have come across post advertising webinars. I mean, they're very widely used, but I don't think most organizations really maximize the actual potential. I think whilst, up to 91% of B2B professionals use webinars as a part of their kind of wider marketing strategy, very few actually repurpose the content they're getting effectively. And whilst digital fatigue is kind of a big challenge for a lot of marketers, so now more than ever, content needs to be engaging in multi-platform in order to stand out. I think traditional webinar metrics often miss the kind of bigger picture. So failing to track post-event impact and also the marketing efforts you're putting into promoting that webinar beforehand as well. So I think what we're really interested in is how we can move beyond a single event mindset and turn webinars into ongoing assets for ourselves.
Exactly that. And I think it's kind of done right at the start, right? So successful webinars, obviously they don't happen just by accident. And like anything in digital marketing, success is the result of strategic planning. Like, the old saying, what is it? Fail to plan, then plan to fail, right? And it's at this stage, I think what a lot of people tend to do is focus purely on the webinar itself. But maybe neglecting the overall content and promotion strategy at this point. So, and maybe sometimes they'll be thinking about, oh yeah, how do we get most bums on seats? How do we get drive attendance? But there's a lot more that we can do with this sort of content. And just to add, it's not necessarily just about webinars. Hopefully these tips can be practical across the board for most events and live streams and even event attendance at third-party events. It doesn't have to all be your own. So how do we maximize these? Rory, why don't you take us through kind of a few ways in which you kind of maximize the return, starting at the content strategy part?
I think a lot of it comes down to kind of big picture thinking here. I think effective teams will treat webinars as part of their broader content ecosystem, and that kind of can be about starting with pre-event planning. So thinking about outlining key content pieces before you even kind of finalize your topic, like what content can you seed in advance that will hopefully build up towards realizing or kind of actualizing those ideas over the course of a webinar. Content design, so thinking about how we structure the discussions with our guests or our speakers so that they can be repurposed down the line into articles or LinkedIn posts or even kind of Q&A blogs. So, if someone comes out of a nice soundbite during your discussion, how can we then use that content on different channels? And again, thinking about your promotional timeline from kind of ideation and thinking about, bringing your speakers on board, finalizing a topic, a date. During the webinar itself, how are you going to promote it? Are you going to kind of do live coverage, a recording, a transcript? And then, importantly, what a lot of people forget about is how you're going to promote it afterwards as well. So give it some longevity.
Exactly. I think hopefully a great example is what we're doing here. So we had the whole content machine, if you like, planned out before we even had the topic for this LinkedIn Live. So we knew what is going out when, and we take that. We always recommend that pre, during, and post campaign approach for your webinars, and there's a framework and the framework should not only guide your content planning and promotion, but I think it's also really important that you use this to measure your success at each stage. So establish your KPIs that reflect the whole ecosystem, not just the bums on seat. So pre-event, maybe obviously registration rates, an obvious one. You've got your email open and click-through rates. Partner amplification is a good one. Maybe during an event, obviously, it's going to be centered around attendance, drop off perhaps, and you can use it to gauge success of content and the webinar itself. But then the post event is all important as well, and that's probably the most overlooked. And how can we engage future audiences, and what and content performance on an ongoing basis. Because remember, it doesn't just stop when the webinar ends. It's not that's it and we move on. How can we follow up effectively and ensure the webinar remains top of mind, and your content remains top of mind, and try and get more out of it on the longer term. So another one that, if anyone that's kind of seen any of our content or has been on previous LinkedIn lives, we're a big fan of collaboration. It's a bit of a favorite of ours. And make sure you check out some of our future LinkedIn lives, because we do have a lot planned around collaboration in the not too distant future, because it's important. It's not just a buzzword. You can get far more engagement, and it allows you to tap into other people's audiences, right? So if you've got a partner with similar audience to yourselves, but they're not competing, it's a great way to kind of hop on, piggyback onto to try and reach their audience, boosting your ROI significantly. And if you've heard, as I say, if you've heard any of our LinkedIn lives or read any of our fuel room posts, you'll know something we're probably one of my favorite things at this point in time is around what we call the EAT. It's all about expertise. It's all about authority, experience, and building up trust. And these collaborations really help achieve this. And this is another thing you do for some of our biggest clients, right? Any tips, Rory?
And we find that, collaborating, as you said, is really important. But we like to think of it as kind of, not just a content ecosystem, but who is in, our partner ecosystem. Can we develop a kind of matrix of sorts? We can map out potential partners that are relevant to this topic or to that topic. What audiences might they have that we can align our content with? And then how can we engage them by creating, shareable assets? And that's not just LinkedIn posts, stuff that you're putting out and writing, but, assets, images, videos, speaker cards, what have you. And, if you can co-brand those, that then incentivizes, all the parties that are involved to share, because they have a stake in that content, and it gives them a nice image or visual that they can put on their own profile to let their audience know that they're getting involved in a webinar.
Oh, yeah, I think that's all great points. So let's say you've identified who you want to collaborate, and you're working with a client on collaboration, and we've got the partners in place and everyone's on board and what have you. Obviously, optimal timing is really key. So how do you normally go about managing that, and what the important elements to consider?
I think inconsistent or kind of, fragmented messaging can actually muddy the waters quite a bit when it comes to kind of getting across your clear messaging about what you're talking about, when, who's involved. So I think if you can kind of coordinate or, work on a calendar together that ensures, your promotion is timely, synchronized and also sustained across different networks, that can really help. I think, whoever's involved in your webinar, whoever's collaborating, they then have an idea of when to post, what's going out when, and also can help to kind of generate really good impact on LinkedIn. So we like to think about it as, what we call the golden hour. So the first hour after a post goes live, when engagement that comes in on any channel is really, really important. It will help to boost, the view of the post in the feed, impressions, comments, likes, shares. So, we can think about, collaborating and coordinating on that golden hour, and also, having this promotional timeline, this bigger kind of collaborative calendar where we've got key dates for kind of social media posts, emails that are going to go out, any paid campaign or boost you might want to do as well. So everyone's on the same page about how you're going to kind of promote that webinar together. I think posting windows as well, so kind of continuous visibility leading up to the event, so it's staying fresh of mind for people, front of mind. And again, that release plan, so thinking about how do people know what to promote and when, and what formats can they also use. Some people might prefer to promote on LinkedIn, some people might email people, some people might reach out to some of their connections individually or privately. So just an example for that, we ran a campaign for a client that was speaking at COP. They had a panel that they were featuring on where they had, I think, speakers from 4 or 5 different companies, all of which were, partners or clients of, our main client there. And we had, 5 people that all had their own ecosystems, their own networks that they wanted to try and engage. So we gave them kind of a variety of assets, a media pack, for example, which gave them everything they needed to know, all the assets they could use. And that way they were all talking about the webinar to 5 different audiences, meaning we had much better awareness and visibility of the event, and the turnout was great in the end. So that was a nice example of getting it to work across different stakeholders.
Awesome. So let's now jump back into a bit of content. So the ongoing message that here is webinar success isn't just about the live event, but we need to work hard. We need to build anticipation. We need to build engagement beforehand. Audiences engage more when they see compelling insights in advance, for sure. That we've had some really good results when we've been doing that for some of our clients. By highlighting kind of key moments from the webinar, you can kind of you spark interest and drive registrations before the event. So think about what insights you can turn into nice visuals, or potentially these days you can create AI animations if you know how to do it. So there's a lot of tools out there that allow you to kind of create maybe moving images, which stands out a little bit more on feeds. Kind of highlight real world impact and success stories, and how the webinar will address challenges and provide actionable takeaways. For example, if a speaker plans to discuss, let's say, how B2B webinars generate 3 times more leads than traditional events, turn that into a strat-driven social card or visual with an engaging question to drive discussion. That's already beginning to kind of roll out the content from your webinar content, and your speaker content, or keynote speaker slides. So you can take that, you can create multiple formats, which again we'll touch on formats a lot in a minute. But I think making sure that it's not just that webinar itself. You can't just obviously hope that it's going to ignite on its own. And then another thing we really want to try and do is in order to kind of get our content out there and get the results that we're looking for, is leveraging advocacy and the networks available. So how do we leverage our network? So it's another thing, Rory, you do a lot, right? You're managing advocacy for some of our clients, and something that is a real challenge, but obviously is super important.
Yeah, I think, internal, external networks, they're not often front of mind for people, and they're, a really good and often untapped source as well of engagement, interest, awareness. I mean, there's 2 really good stats about that up there you can see on screen. I mean, for starters, I think, employee advocacy can increase content reach by up to 561%. 78% of buyers or consumers trust peer recommendations on social media. And there are a lot of tools out there that can really help to get this ball rolling as well. So Spout Social, for example, or you can manage it manually. But the key, I think, here is to kind of engage your experts and your employees within your organization with relevant audiences to the people you're trying to reach. So when they amplify your content, it not only increases visibility, but helps surface your content through LinkedIn's algorithm, or Meta's algorithm, to the right users. On that point as well, our last guide, our last session we did on LinkedIn Live was about turning your experts within your organization into influencers and thought leaders. So we'll drop that in the comments as well, where we cover that in a lot more detail. But one thing we do to kind of, help people with that side of advocacy, people might not be familiar with it. They might not feel comfortable as such, using their own profiles to amplify, business or company content. But we'll kind of create for them, for their benefit, a bunch of potential comments, discussion points, as well as, assets and posts that they can share, so they don't need to create it themselves. We are basically equipping them with everything they need to help us promote. And then, they can then activate their network themselves, by engaging these people. They've got messages teed up for them to share. And then, you yourself, if you're kind of, marketing this webinar or working on this webinar, can think about your external network as well. So, a shareable library of content, assets, videos, short animations, like Ash mentioned. Thinking about industry influencers that you could perhaps reach out to, a co-branded initiative, so they have a stake in the content as well. I'm thinking as well about people in your network that you might be connected with that work in that industry or in that field, or would be interested in the topic you're talking about, or even have an audience that you could tap into as well. But I think it is worth noting that, a one-size-fits-all outreach approach won't work here. I think it's important to create tailored messages for people that will align with their kind of their character, their style, their network, their role. I think people want messages that resonate with their kind of that are going to come across as authentic, for example, on LinkedIn, because that is really key as well. These people need a reason to share this post or this content or this webinar. Why are they excited about it? Why should you attend? What will you gain? Why is it worth your time? Because the reality is, a lot of these webinars are happening during the working day. People are taking time out of their schedule to join. So, what value are they going to gain in exchange for their time?
Absolutely. So obviously, if we want maximum impact for our webinar activity, we want to make sure that people are able to register. And this one's a bit of a no-brainer, but it touches on conversion rate optimization, and content is still really key here. Fundamentally, we want to make it as easy, obviously, for users to register. Many people or many potential attendees, they don't register for things simply because the process is too complicated or convoluted. But by streamlining signups and offering multiple registration options, you move friction and increase conversion rates. So the reason we included this point is it's about multi-channel, and it's about getting it right from the pre-event content strategy, and making sure that you can track across platforms. So use UTMs to track performance and analytics, understand which channels are performing for future. It's about making sure you're marrying up the right content and the right messaging, the right call to action on the right platform that allows and have those call to actions are incredibly important in driving those registrations.
Yeah, I'll say, it's important to not forget that, different platforms do require different messaging. So, what you put together for your email campaign won't necessarily resonate in the same way on LinkedIn, where people are kind of scrolling a bit faster. Something needs to kind of stand out and catch their eye quickly. So, AI could be an option to help you kind of optimize content for different channels in that respect.
Absolutely. And then if we still need to boost registrations or target new audiences, well, we may need to consider a paid budget, where we can use ads that facilitate the registration seamlessly. So we want to try and minimize the number of clicks from potential impression. So yeah, there's a number of tactics there. We want to make sure that the content's right across platform, and that it's a seamless journey. And not only that, if we've set this up well, we can then, for example, we can view anyone that views a certain web page, and then we can retarget those users. And if they're relevant for the future and they're relevant for other webinars, potentially we want to run a paid campaign and retarget them in the future. So following them around a bit, and it's about building that data. And then I think for me personally, number 6 and 7 are probably my favorite 2 points in the whole deck here, because this is where we really get into the kind of creating maximum amount of content and as efficiently as possible. And it goes back to our running theme. The impact of the webinar shouldn't stop when the live session ends. Post-event content extends engagement. It can enhance your brand authority, and dare I say, it can generate leads long after the webinar is over. So Rory, give us some advice on efficiency and managing post-event content.
Yeah, I think, just to echo that sentiment again, I think this is the really kind of valuable takeaway here. I think, it is about longevity. I think how you can keep that webinar, or that session you just had, the discussion you just had, fresh in people's minds, long after the kind of event ends. I think when it comes to that post-promotional period, I think manually, doing this manually, reviewing and extracting insights, it's time-consuming, it's inefficient. I think you can create, a streamlined process which will automate some of it and speed up for you, so you kind of can start to promote and engage people after the event much quicker. I think, any good webinar, right, will have, a wealth of information, but, it's important to think about how you can kind of extract and reuse it effectively. I think if you think about breaking that content down into segments, it's easy to repurpose across different platforms. Again, thinking about different messaging for different channels. One single discussion segment or 3-minute snippet, for example, could be turned into loads of different assets. You can think about a LinkedIn post with the key takeaways, or here top 5 takeaways, or 3 things that we learned. A blog article with perhaps a few more words to it, with certain speakers positioned as experts, or you have quotes attributed to them. You can think about short form video clips for social engagement on YouTube videos or shorts. Really important platform to kind of think about as well. The second biggest search engine after Google. So then, instead of people rewatching the entire webinar, you've already pre-identified the key moments that are going to stand out and can be reworked into standalone content. So think about, you've got a LinkedIn post. Here are the 3 takeaways. Each of those takeaways could be, a short video or, reel for LinkedIn or YouTube or Instagram.
And nowadays, I don't think there's any excuse, because there are tools that will even snip it up the video, and they'll find the best highlights. So you don't actually need to do that much work, even if we're suggesting that you plan this out at the start. So, for example, we try and have timestamps as we go along, to like key discussion points or key points we want to cover in content later on. So we know the timestamp, we've got that ready, we can go to that point, saves a bit of time. But nowadays, there's all sorts of tools and that we can utilize to actually do some of this for us. For example, another thing we like is so using an AI powered transcription tool. For example, there's ChatGPT's or OpenAI's Whisper tool that helps to generate a transcript from any sound, and then taking that, you can obviously easily find key points that you want to cover. You can run that through AI again and turn that into snippets. So you can get creative with the AI tools. You can do it manually. That's entirely up to you. But I think it's really important to kind of maximize all of the potential gold that you have. And we will look at the audience engagement and the comments that we might receive on a LinkedIn Live, for example, or on some of our posts, and we'll then use those to identify topics and pain points worth expanding on. And another way we create efficiency here is by building templates for different content formats and channels, so they're reusable. For example, this deck is reusable in the future. Obviously, the content will change. We have PDF templates that we will use. So trying to take a templatable approach obviously will save you time in the long run. And if we are using any AI, it's just really important. We're not talking here about spamming content. I know there's a success story there, where a firm that we know extracted 87 content pieces and generated loads of downloads. But we're not talking about necessarily spamming content. We always apply the 80-20 rule to anything we do with AI, for example. That means that, yeah, we might use 80% to create to create with AI, but there's 20% that goes into every piece of content is the humanization of it. Minimum 20%. Sometimes that can be a lot more as well, but that's around validating, improving, making sure it meets tone of voice guidelines, just checking for making sure it's all correct, because sometimes we can see some funny results, should we say, from some of these AI tools. And it goes hand in hand with my final point here. So repurposing content across diverse formats. So similar to obviously you promoting further and taking a post-event strategy, and we've touched on this, but if we give it a deeper dive, there's tons of ideas for how you can repurpose your webinar. For example, making sure you have a mix of short form and long form content on top of the video clips, and what we mentioned about turning videos into short form shorts and reels and what have you. But you can also develop longer form articles from key points. For example, expand on one point and turn that into its own blog or article. Again, you can utilize AI in the mix if you know how to, and kind of create some more content on the back of that. What about creating data visuals and key insights? If we've got a stat, if your expert or the speaker kind of comes with a bit of data, well, that's a no-brainer to turn that into something visual. Breaking down key takeaways into multiple discussion points, maybe sparking engagement over time. And another good one, you could highlight the most valuable audience questions, AI generated key takeaway recaps, for maybe you're as I say, you're going to get the transcript and you're going to then run that through AI, and you're going to create a newsletter. Maybe you're going to create a LinkedIn newsletter, all from the content that you've got from your webinar. Extracting sound bites as well. So maybe it's not even visual. Maybe there's opportunity to just use sound bites for digestible insights. I know, Rory, we do that for one of our clients. They like to then post the sound bites, and they actually do quite well, even with a static image to go with. But these are just a few examples. There's loads more. We've as we've said, we've got a full PDF guide on this. So if you want more specific information, specific tactics, specific formats you can create, so do check out our full PDF guide. Anything you wanted to add there, Rory?
I mean, I think you've come from really good points there about just bringing that story to life a little bit more. I think as you kind of demonstrated there's loads of different ways you can do that. I think it's also worth noting different audiences as well, because I know we talked about different audiences earlier, people that are on different channels, people that have different interests, people that are kind of going to go away and do different things with what they've learned, hopefully. So I think segmenting this content, all the kind of content ideas you've just listed for those different audiences is important. I think people will want to see different content as well. So if you think about senior leadership, C-suite, they probably don't need the same level of data or insight as perhaps the marketing or technical teams. They just need top line what it's going to do for them. So I think if you think about how you can kind of go away and action that and think about segmentation, I think creating an executive summary with your key takeaways, perhaps even dividing it up into by topic if you're talking about a few different things over the course of the webinar. But again, concise top line, headline, hook format. A tactical guide or kind of a playbook. So again, we've got the PDF we'll be able to share after this, but actionable steps for industry professionals. So step by step, here's how to do it. And then again, some of the examples you listed just before, but that kind of micro content for social media. So LinkedIn posts, carousels, slides. If you've got enough of following on LinkedIn, can you kind of target your posts to different regions, different audiences, different seniorities, different interests, for example? And how can you make sure that the right people are seeing the right content? You understand, hopefully, your audience. You have some personas that you might be marketing to. What content do you think is going to resonate with them? And then how can you turn this webinar into that content that's going to work and have an impact?
Well said. So that kind of brings us to the end of the session, more or less. I hope there was something useful in there for everyone. And I realise we have run over time slightly. But before we go, just to summarise, webinars shouldn't be one-off events. I hope that came across. It shouldn't be just a kind of do the event and forget about it. And hopefully most people are beyond that at this point. But treat them as kind of potential multi-channel ecosystems for our content. So taking this webinar, what can we do with it? What channels could we then repurpose content with? What can we create? What can we create efficiently? Ensure that you're planning from the start with this in mind, because I think that's where a lot of the magic happens in the strategy part of this. And scale your content output with efficiency, with templates, and design with repurposing in mind. And then obviously track your performance, optimize for future strategies, and use the data. Use those UTMs in all your links on different channels so you can understand what is working, what's not working. And yeah, start maybe by auditing your current webinar strategy and seeing how much content you're currently producing, what channels you're operating on, and are you doing as much as you could be doing on this. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap things up because we have gone over. If you have any any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and we will come back to you. I've seen there's a few comments already, so thank you for everyone. And we did have some international audience, so that's great to see. We've gone worldwide. But on that note, if you want the PDF, do email us at hello@seventhelement.agency, or feel free to drop a comment. You can check out our fuel room on our website, with kind of loads of best practice guides and other PDF downloads. But this one is on our fuel room. The whole PDF is available for download, so do check it out. And also, as ever, do feel free to let us know if there's any topics you want us to cover in the future. We're keen to kind of we're keen to help. So please do let us know. And on that route for me, thank you very much for all those joining. And if you're watching this after the live, then yeah, I hope you find some use for the session. And until next time.
Cheers.